Well, friends, I had said yesterday, and I had left on the point, that like Buddha, Patanjali also gives the fourfold approach towards yoga in the form of Heya, Heya, Hetu, Han, and Hanopaya. And undoubtedly, it is a very, I also try to say that it is a very Ayurvedic approach that you can find in Ayurveda that is known as Chaturvyuhavad. Well, whatever it may be, let us try to understand each one, not in detail, which is not possible. As you know, that today is the last session, and if we go in detail, it is impossible to go with the second one in detail. However, I will just make a reference. Heyam dukkham anagatam. The pain that has not yet arrived. Anagatam means not yet arrived. Not yet arrived, when he says, it means that it is bound to arrive to you. Not yet arrived. Pain that has not yet arrived is to be avoided. It is a very clear approach. He wants to say that the pain that has already arrived, you can't do anything except that you have to undergo it. You can avoid that which has not yet come and is bound to come. This is very important thing. It is bound to come. That's why you should take care. You should take preventive measure. And this particular Heyam is actually giving us a method for preventive measure. Heyam dukkham anagatam. You have already taken the birth. Now, when you have already taken the birth, you can't go back. You can't reverse the birth. No, the birth itself suggests, it means that past has already come to you. This is past. You can't do anything. You have come in the form of body and birth. This is what is your condition. Now, as you grow, you are coming across with different type of pains and sufferings. These all different types of pain and suffering, as time passes, the different type of pain and suffering goes to the past and the present comes. So the present that we are undergoing is the state of our condition, where different types of pain that we are experiencing is bound to be experienced. We cannot do anything with that. But Patanjali has said very important thing. He said pain that has not yet arrived. Try to understand this very thing. When it says it is related with the future does not mean that from the after 1 year or after 5 years or after 10 years. Future means from just next time limit, time unit, not any other thing, not tomorrow, not day after tomorrow. You decide the practice of yoga, and from the next time unit, you are working against any pain that is bound to come to you. This is what is the unique concept that has been presented by Patanjali, Heyam dukkham anagatam. So in this particular concept, he is very clearly saying that you cannot do anything with the past that has already gone, present that is undergoing, but undoubtedly you can do something for the future which is bound to come to you. And that's why he is writing Heyam dukkham anagatam. Then question arises, and here comes the philosophical aspect. This is very unique even in the Buddha and in the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. You know that Buddha always avoided to answer philosophical questions. He was not in favor of answering any philosophical questions, where from we have come, where we will go, where the world was created earlier or where world will not be there, who created the world, and all these metaphysical questions Buddha used to avoid. He said that, is it going to help you in any way? So why are you asking these metaphysical questions which is not going to help you? You are suffering, and the most important thing is that you should know how this suffering can be removed. That is the most important point. But even when he avoided the philosophical questions, he had to he had to write the philosophical concepts in his Buddhism, or we find the philosophy of Buddhism also. It only suggests that without philosophy you cannot go further. Philosophy, you must have the support of the philosophy as to what you are going to do and what it will give you the result. As I told you, the philosophy starts with simple question. If you are drinking tea and if somebody asks, why are you drinking tea? Whatever answer you will give, it will be a philosophy. So question of and the philosophy is just a matter that you are looking at the thing that has not yet arrived, that may come, and that you are expected to get. Now, in the same way, Patanjali is also asked, why this problem that has not yet arrived is bound to come to me? Why I am here in this world for the sake of suffering? Why I have got the birth? Why I am undergoing the suffering in the present life? Patanjali says there is the reason behind. And that's why he uses the second concept known as Heya Hetu. There is a reason behind. There is a reason behind the suffering that you are undergoing. And he uses the word Drashta Drisyayo Sanyogo Heya Hetu. You know that when I am reading this sutra, I have a lot of thought in my mind. Patanjali doesn't use the word Prakriti and Purusha, which is used in Sankhya philosophy. And here he uses the word seer and seen. You know that seen is a technical term. Prakriti is not seen, though it gives evolution to the seen object. But a union between the drashta, the seer principle, and the seen principle is the root cause of our pain. So this is what I want to say, that it is not simply talking about the union of Prakriti and Purus that is presented by Sankhya. He wants to say the objects are there. And since you have identified yourself with the objects, that is why the problem has come. So Drashta and Drishya, Drashta is the seer in you, has got identified with the objects that is there in the world. And that is giving you the pain. And that is the reason for the pain. Our attachment and association and identification with the objects of the world is resulting into pain. It's resulting into pain because of the attachment that we have developed with the objects of the world. And Drashti Drisyayo Sanyogo, if there would not have been the contact, we would not have got the pain. Now this contact has resulted into attachment. So Drashti Drisyayo Sanyogo Hetu is giving something that we are undergoing in this world now. But we cannot understand this particular sutra only with this understanding. And that's why Patanjali had to write so many other things. And he had to go with the concept of the Sankhya philosophy. Drashti Drisyayo Sanyogo Hetu. And then Patanjali says that because of the union, there is disturbance in the gunas of Prakriti. And these three gunas are of the nature of three types, that is of it. One is of light, one is of the movement, and other is of stable nature. So all these three always try to overpower each other, and they are responsible for different types of the objects that have come into the world, along with the different sense organs that we are having or that we are working and that is working with us. And the evolutes that they come is little different from the Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya philosophy says that there are Mula Prakriti, Avakriti, Mahadadya, Prakriti Vikriteha Sapt, Sodas Kastu Vikara. Here he is not going with that particular technical term. He uses the term Visesh, Avisesh, Lingamatra, Alingani. Undoubtedly, the reference is the same. The Visesh are all the evolutes that are only the effects, not the cause of anything, are called Vishesha. The Avishesha are those which are cause and effect both. So far as the Linga Matra and Alinga, here is a little difference. Linga Matra is only the Mahat and Alinga is Prakriti. And these are the Gun Pravani. This is how the different objects of the world, depending on the dominance of the different gunas, they come into existence. This is a very nutshell. I'm not going into details. Patanjali only wanted to say, then question arises, why at all we are associated and attached with the objects of the world. And here it is a very common understanding on the whole Indian philosophy that it is nothing but ignorance. And ignorance is the root cause of our bondage in this world. It has been accepted by all the philosophers, excepting only the Charvakas. So, keeping aside the Charvakas, all the other 8 systems of Indian philosophy accept unanimously that the most important thing that has worked behind our binding or bondage in this world is nothing but ignorance. Now, if this much is accepted, and this is nothing to, I am not finding anything that can be superimposed or can be given much thought on this point, excepting that he is more practical in his presentation, and that's why the words that he has used here, not allowing the word Purusha and Prakriti, he has used the word Drashta and Drishya. And Drashta and Drishya are the real existing concept of Prakriti. Prakriti is otherwise invisible. So here he is saying the Drishya that you can see, Drishya that can be seen. And that is why these 2 words are very important in comparison to the Prakriti and Purusha. When we see this thing, and Patanjali says that all these things have come because of the ignorance, then question arises, how ignorance can be removed? Can we remove the ignorance? And Patanjali has said very clearly that yes, tadabhavat, that is, if there is no ignorance, sanjoga bhava, our attachment towards the objects of the world will not be there. And tadabhavat sanjoga bhava, iska matlab means that you will not be associated with the objects of the world. Hanam tad drishe kaivalyam. And that is called the Hanam, that is Drishe. Drishe means the Purusha. Purusha attains the isolation. It is isolation means becomes dissociated or unattached with the objects of the world. And that is called isolation. So, tad drishe kaivalyam. Question arises further, what is the method? And therefore Patanjali has said it in one sutra for which Patanjali is known. And if Patanjali is known today, he is known for this Ashtanga Yoga. People may not be knowing his Chitta Prasadan, people may not be knowing his Kriya Yoga or anything else. But he knows the Chitta Ashtanga Yoga. People is known by and knowing Patanjali by Ashtanga Yoga. Now, what he says about the Ashtanga Yoga? He writes a sutra, Yoganganushthanat Ashuddhik Chaye Jnanadipti Aviveka Khyate. Yoganga Anushthan, you have to do the Anushthan of Yoganga. There is very technical term used by Patanjali, and it is sometimes really confuses whether Patanjali is willing to make any difference in the words when he is using for one and the same understanding 2 different words. He says Yoganga Anushthanat. He is not using the word Yoganga Abhyasat. Whereas Abhyas and Anushthan, what fundamentally can be the difference? And undoubtedly we can find out some difference according to the Indian concept. In India, we have the concept of Abhyas and Anushthan differently. Anushthan is a practice of certain thing which is continued till you get the final result. Unless you get the result, you will not leave the practice. And that is called Anusthana. Abhyas is only a repeatability of the practice. You have to do the practice continuously. There is no such concept behind that you have to get the result also behind. So I am doing the anusthana. When you do the anusthana means you will not leave the practice, or you will not leave the work unless and until you get the result. This will result into removal of the impurities. There are a lot of impurities in us. You can find the Smriti Parisuddhi is also there. There are the kleshas also working in us. There are a lot of things that are obstructing our vision, obstructing our right understanding. Patanjali says that as a result of the practice of the Yoganga Anusthana, there will be the removal of impurities, which are working as covering for us. When there will be the removal of the impurities, Asuddhi Jnana Dipti, there will be the kindling of knowledge. Knowledge will come to you. And kindling of knowledge will result further as it continues. Kindling of knowledge will result into Jnana Dipti Aviveka Khyate, till you get the discriminative knowledge. Jnana will give you the power to discriminate between the seer and the seen principle, between the conscious and unconscious principle. And when you will be able to understand that my existence or the seer's existence is different from the seen existence, then its seer existence is able to dissociate itself from the objects of the world. This is what is the concept that Patanjali has given through the Ashtanga Yoga. And then he writes, what is the Ashtanga Yoga? What are those? They are 8 in number. Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. I am not showing this particular sutra because it is so popular that you know it very well. I have got only 1 or 2 things to mention in this point. You know that people, when I spoke this sutra, and I will be speaking about the 8 limbs, and I will be speaking like Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. There will be no problem in understanding, and there is no problem in the ear that I have spoken anything wrong. But if I speak Yama, Niyama, Pranayam, Asana, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi, it will create a problem in your mind. What is this? Sometime you are speaking Yam, then you are going to Pranayam, then you are speaking about Niyama. You must speak in sequence. Why we insist on sequence? 8 limbs are important. It is not having any sequence as such. Do you think that there is a sequence between Yam and Niyama? Do you think that after the practice of Yama only you can go for the practice of Niyama? Like that in Hatha Yoga, which says very clearly that after the practice of asana, go for the practice of kumbhakas. Asana, there is a sequence in the practice. And that's why it is said that after the practice, Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayam, people think that after the practice of Yama, then go for the Niyama, then go for the Asana. The whole life will be wasted. You will not be able to go to the practice of even the 2 or 3 Yamas only. You have to practice it simultaneously. Not only about the Yama and Niyama, I am including in it the concept of Pratyahar. You have to develop a detachment towards the objects of the world right from the beginning. But this is not the case with the Asana and Pranayam, which has a relationship, first Asana, then Pranayam. You are right in saying this. And this is also applied in the case of Dharana, Dhyan, Samadhi. There is a Dharana, then Dhyan, then Samadhi. So where there is the sequence, I accept it very clearly, but this is not the case with the practice of Yama, Niyama, and also the Pratyahar. These 3. And therefore you can make changes. This is one aspect that I wanted to share with you all. Now the aspect that I am going to speak, and still I am working on it. I am just sharing with you, and I am working on it because I am not yet come to the solution of all the problems that is raised by me only. You know that whenever you read, I will be speaking on yamas and niyamas afterwards, but I'm just speaking this point here now because one of my guests is going in 45 minutes. So I want that he should also listen to the point that I am trying to convey. You know that whenever we talk about the yamas and niyamas, we always say that yamas are the interpersonal relationship. You are how to behave in society, a social code of conduct. There are a lot of ways that is being understood by the yama. And then about the niyama, it is the self-observations or observances. These are the two things that is usually said for, and they are code of conduct that one should do for the sake of the practice of yoga. I believe that yes, this is maybe true. And many commentators have said this point very clearly in various commentaries. And that may be one of the reasons that the latter yogic texts, especially the Hatha Yoga texts, have just ignored the yamas and niyamas because they might have found that there is nothing yogic. It is just a code of conduct to be applied and to be followed by each and every person. So what is Hatha Yogic in it? So since there is no Hatha Yoga concept in this yamas and niyamas, so they have not accepted it as the part or limb of Hatha Yoga. Are you getting this point? This is how they have done it. But I believe that the practice of yamas and niyamas that has been presented by Patanjali is for the sake of attaining mastery over what he has said in his kleshas or what he has said in the other aspects. All yamas and niyamas are contributing towards how you can go or you can work upon all those things that are disturbing you. So do not think that they are only the ahimsa satyaste, they have said it like that. They have a relationship with all the practices, all the problems that Patanjali has presented in the form of klesha, in the form of vritti, in the form of chitta vikshep and whatever it may be. Patanjali's every practice. I am giving you just one example, then perhaps you will be understanding this thing. Why I have come to this conclusion. I am working still upon it. I was just thinking on it. Take the example of Shaucha. We say that it is purification. When I read Shaucha, and also the way Shaucha has been understood by various commentaries, it says that one which is impure, we are considering it pure. One which is impure, we are considering it pure. And one which is impure means what? Impure is that we are attracted towards the other's body, and this body is which has lived inside the mother's womb with lot of filth and lot of other things, and that is not good thing. They are there, and the body has lived 9 months there. So body is fundamentally an impure thing. Patanjali's this concept of Shauch, which has been presented by commentators, and I think that commentators are right in presenting this way. Patanjali's this concept has been presented by commentators in this way, and he says that which is impure, we are considering it to be pure. And then Patanjali in Shaucha says, in Niyama, says that practice Shaucha. And in Shaucha's effect, Patanjali mentioned Shauchat Swanga Jugupsa Paraira Sansarga. What Shaucha is going to contribute? If you practice Shaucha, it will create a type of disgust towards one's own body. And it will also take you to the point that you will not be interested in any other's body to touch it. This concept of Shaucha has a unique relation with the concept of Shaucha in Avidya. Are you getting this point? And when you will try to understand that each yama and niyama, what Patanjali has said, actually is trying to overcome or trying to how to overcome or how we can work upon all the things that are there obstructing our progress in the field of yoga. He is talking about ahimsa. He is talking about satya. He is talking about asteya. Each and every limb, you can very well see that what type of klesa or what type of chittavritti or what type of uh, mm, this avidya or all these things can be worked upon this. So I do not consider yamas and niyamas only a instruction given for the code of conduct. It has a yogic purpose behind. An yogic purpose which fulfills the purpose of Patanjali's presentation of yoga. That is very important. That we are not. I think that this concept I have not found in any literature or any commentator. They have not tried to see the particular yamas and niyamas in the light of what Patanjali has said earlier in the format. But if it is, and there is also a reason behind why I am coming to this conclusion. If it has no relationship with what Patanjali has said earlier and is working upon them, then why this yamas and niyamas at all to be practiced? It has a essential relationship. We must work upon it. Am I correct to say this thing? This is very, very different way of understanding the yamas and niyamas, not a usual way of understanding only the yasat. What is ahimsa? Okay, ahimsa pratisthayam, tat sannidho, vairat tyaga, and all these things we are saying. That we should understand that they are actually helping us in attainment of the goal of yoga. And that is what, in the light of Patanjali's presentation of all the things that he has presented earlier and how Ashtanga Yoga can help in removing or in overcoming all those things. Now coming to the point, this is just one point that I wanted to refer. I will be working upon something. I will be giving you some more, just one very, very popular example or very clear example that I wanted to quote here was that of Soch. There are other aspects also that can be worked upon. Now coming to the yamas, and as I told you, yamas are 5: ahimsa, satya, steya, brahmacharya, parigraha. Patanjali says if you want and if you think of practicing yamas, you will always be disturbed by anti-yamas. This is the human nature, a human tendency. You think of, I will do fasting, and immediately you will feel hungry. You think of that I will not speak anything, I will observe silence, and immediately you will be in need of speaking something. This is what is very human nature, that we always, whenever we try to do something good, a opposite concept immediately comes and disturbs. In Sanskrit, in Sanskrit it is said, Shreyansi bahu vignani. When you go for some higher thing, a great thing to do, there are a lot of obstructions. The same thing is that when you are trying to do something good, these are the obstructions that come. Patanjali says if you decide to practice yamas, you will be disturbed by anti-yamas. Anti-yamas will start disturbing you. The feeling of killing, feeling of violence, feeling of speaking lie, and all these things will be there in your mind, and it will be difficult for you to practice yamas like ahimsa, satya, steya, brahmacharya, parigraha. This is the human nature that Patanjali wanted to say. And this human nature that I usually say is not because today, this is 21st century and we have become very complicated person, we have become very bad persons. Goodness and badness was in the same, maybe that number of persons were come, but goodness and badness were there, existing even 2000 years ago and today in the same way. We have not changed at all. Patanjali is, why I am saying, because Patanjali is giving a very good sutra for it. He says, Vitarka hinsadaya. When he says hinsa, etc., it only means that he is referring to the yamas and just to go for anti-yamas, opposite of the yamas. hinsadaya. Krit karita anumodita. Krit to be done by oneself. Karita getting it done by others on payment or whatever. And or instigate the other person to do the thing. It is just the same. Krit karita anumodita. Supporting and giving all sorts of support to the outlaws is called anumodita. Those who are doing anti-yamas and I am going to support it. Now see how Patanjali's justice will work. Patanjali will say that the person who has done it is the criminal himself or has done something wrong. Therefore, he will be punished for the sake of the work done by himself. Krita. The person who has instigated him, who has paid for him, he will also be punished for the sake of karita. And anumodita will say that, okay, you have supported what he has said or what he has done for the sake of supporting any outlaw, for the sake of supporting that should not be supported, you are also having the equal punishment. Well, these are three things may look to be, but somewhere we are doing this type of the things. We are doing in our daily life also. Not in the same way. See, don't think hinsa to be killing somebody, but disturbing in the office, disturbing in any other family or any other such thing is also like hinsa. We are doing that way. And that is why Patanjali had to say that hinsa can be done in mild way, hinsa can be done in mediocre way or middle way, and hinsa can be done in intense way. Mridu madhyadi matra. But the question arises, why we are doing the hinsa? Why we are involved in that? And then Patanjali writes, it is because of the three reasons. Lobha, krodha and moha. Greed, anger and infatuation. Because of the greed, anger and infatuation, we are involved in doing anti-yamas. And this has been worked out like a work of Indian psychology. They have said that how many types of hinsa is possible. It can be krita hinsa, it can be karit hinsa, it can be anumodit hinsa, it can be mridu hinsa, it can be madhya hinsa, it can be adhimatra hinsa, it can be hinsa because of love, because of krodha, because of moha. There are a lot of possibilities of different types of the function that are different types of the anti-yamas that we can perform. Patanjali says that yes, it is very, very possible that you will be involved in the anti-yamas, but you should keep yourself away from it. Because if you are not keeping away from it, then it will result into pain, ignorance, an unending result. Your pain will be increased, your ignorance will never go, and unending result means you will never be getting the liberation. You will always be subjected for taking birth again and again in this world. Dukkha jnana ananta phala iti. Dukkha, that is pain, ajnana, that is ignorance, and ananta phala, unending result will be there with you. And Patanjali says that this will be always. Try to understand and remain these concepts. Patanjali has used the word lobha, Patanjali has used the word krodha, Patanjali has used the word moha, and you have to overcome it. When he gives this yama and gives this effect of different things, he is reminded of these things. And you can see that the relationship of yama with all these concepts. You will find that yes, they have a unique relationship. When he talks about the lobha, he is talking also about the asteya, non-greed, because asteya is because of the greed. Lot of things that you will find that they are having the relationship. I have come to the conclusion that we should understand yamas and niyamas in the light of the sutra itself that has been presented by Patanjali, and try to understand that what is written in the yamas and niyamas is just in order to in order to complement and overcome the problem that has been already presented in Yoga Sutra. They are not simply the code of conduct that you have to follow. They are all contributing towards all such things that are giving you disturbance in the life. Are you getting this point? This is how I want to understand this Yoga Sutra in the way. So I wanted to give you something that I am thinking in my mind, and perhaps this is something new because I have not come across this concept. Now coming to the just one each. Patanjali also says, also he has given a way to overcome the vitarka. Because it is not that he has left us to work on yama niyama only. He has said that if you are suffering from vitarka, then you please try to concentrate or make or have the mental attitude towards vitarka vadane pratipaksha bhavanam. Think of opposite of the vitarkas. Think of the opposite of the anti-yamas. What is this? Think of the opposite of the anti-yamas is the same that you have to think of ahimsa if the hinsa is disturbing you. Think of the satya when the asatya is disturbing you. Think of the asteya when steya is disturbing you. Vitarka vadane pratipaksha vadanam, opposite of the vitarkas. And you can think of the opposite of the vitarkas in the form of the same that you are doing. You are doing the ahimsa, you are doing the satya, you are doing the asteya. You have to do that thing. And keep it in mind when you are disturbed by any particular anti-yama. Let us think of this again. Now coming to the ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, parigraha. Ahimsa, usually the result of anger. If you can control your anger, you can control the hinsa. But ahimsa, he says that follow the ahimsa. It means that he wants to say that follow the path where you can control the anger. And I have said also that ahimsa is a negative instruction. Don't kill. What can be the possible positive instruction? You know that in modern times, people are very much obsessed with any negative instruction. Even the modern psychologists say that don't say your word or your boy, do not tell him to not to do anything. To give him a positive instruction as what to do. In the same way, when I have seen, I wanted to know, actually, okay, you don't do hinsa. Then what we have to do? This is more important to know what we have to do if I am not doing hinsa. Ahimsa is the practice which you have not to do anything. But if it is said that develop compassion, it will have a sense, yes. Develop compassion for all beings, then you will be away from hinsa. And try to understand, when he says that you practice ahimsa, you have to work upon your krodha, anger. And when you are working upon your anger, actually you are working upon the idea concept that has been given by Patanjali in the form of vitarkas. I'm saying that there are certain unique relationships. Patanjali says, and then there are a lot of other things that we can say about the ahimsa. Ahimsa pratisthayam tat sannido vairatyaga. The person who is coming in contact with the person who has established ahimsa in himself, the person will be having or will not have any type of ill feeling for anybody if he comes in contact with such person who has established ahimsa. Well, it is said. You know that I quote this story and I don't know the reality what it is, but it was said to me by the person with whom I have first worked on Yoga Sutra. He used to say that in the modern time, Mahatma Gandhi was a great follower of ahimsa. and it is accepted by in the modern time everybody. A great follower of Ahimsa was Mahatma Gandhi. And about Mahatma Gandhi, it is said that he was against the division of India. He was not in favor of the division. And Jinnah, who was in favor of division, was objected by Mahatma Gandhi. It is also said that some follower of Jinnah requested Jinnah to go to Gandhi, directly talk with him, so that Jinnah could convince Gandhi for the division. So he is objecting. The people also asked him that why don't you go to Gandhi directly, talk with him, so that the problem is solved forever. Jinnah said on this, it is said, I don't know it is true or false, but the statement is supporting what I am saying. He informed me, he said that Jinnah said his followers, no, I don't want to go to him. I don't want to talk with him in face to face. Because when I go to him and I confront him face to face, I forget what I want to speak. And that is what is the Ahimsa Pratisthayam Tat Sannidho Vairas Tyaga. He loses his enmity and he is not able to speak what he wants to speak or for what he has come. And this type of very powerful aura you can also feel in the bad persons. Good aura is very difficult to get because good aura requires a good practice. But bad auras are very powerful in comparison to good aura. You can find and receive such good or bad aura very easily. And when you are finding some bad aura around you, you become disturbed. The same way, your good aura is not making disturb the bad person because your good aura is not so powerful. Make it powerful, you will find that the bad aura will be also disturbed from your own good aura. Take the Satya. Patanjali said, practice Satya. Satya Pratisthayam Kriya Phalasvarayatvam. Speak truth. Speaking truth is very difficult in modern times, though Patanjali has said, and what Patanjali has said is not the Patanjali. You can find the same 5 group of practice available in Jainism, the same 5 group of practice available in Buddhism, and the same 5 group of practice is also quoted by Patanjali. Because of this similarity, we are thinking that these are the common things of common code of conduct. But I believe that when Patanjali writes, Patanjali has given a yogic understanding behind and yogic purpose behind. Satya Pratisthayam Kriya Phalasvarayatvam. When you will be established in speaking Satya, truth, then whatever you will speak, it will come to be true. Well, coming to be true is one part. We are speaking the truth. To speak the truth for the welfare, not for harming others. We enjoy the speaking truth for harming others, not for the welfare. We are going to speak the truth. Oh, I have spoken the truth. I have not spoken against him. If it has gone against him, it is for that I am not responsible. This is not the case. If you have spoken the truth in order to harm any person, this is again a bad thing and not supported by Patanjali. Actually, according to the Indian culture, it is said very clearly that Satyam Bruyat, Priyam Bruyat. No Bruyat Satyam Apriyam. Such truth should not be spoken which is not agreeable. Well, it is still, I believe I have just changed the word Satyam Bruyat, Priyam Bruyat. I have changed the word Priyam. I say Shubham Bruyat. Speak for the welfare. Whatever you speak, let it be truth and let it be for the welfare of others. Well, Satyam Bruyat. I also have one very interesting point to note here. People say that, okay, I am speaking truth. If it is harmful for some others, how can I help? I have not done anything wrong. I have spoken just what was truth. No, this idea is wrong to say. That's why you speak truth for the sake of the welfare, not for the sake of harming others. And you know that this is a Jaina concept of Satya. When you are speaking truth, your truth should not be getting involved in hinsa. This is the Jainist concept. Every practice should be from the viewpoint of ahimsa. Satya should not violate ahimsa. So Satya should take care of how it is not violating ahimsa. I told you Satyam Bruyat, Priyam Bruyat. I say Satyam Bruyat, Shubham Bruyat. No Bruyat, Satyam or Shubham. Such truth should not be spoken which is not for the welfare. I also speak one more concept in it, that we are habituated of speaking. We are habituated of speaking in the morning, good morning, or in the night while going to bed, okay, good night, good evening, good afternoon, good, so many good things. And also wish you a happy journey, lot of good things. But do you remember or do you know that most of the time our wishing for good morning, good night, good evening, good wish you all the best or wish you happy journey, all are coming from the lips, not from here. They are all coming from the lips, not from here. And that is why our speech, our power of speech is not there at all. And unless you put power behind your speech, how it can be true? When Patanjali says Satya Pratisthayam Kriya Phalasrayatvam, your whatever you will speak, the action will be there according to your speak. Whatever you will speak will be true. It will be true provided you have put your willingness towards it. It is not mechanical. It is not from the lip. And that's why I say that when you are speaking, at least you speak from here, throat, not from lip. It is always better to speak from heart. And even better if you can speak from navel. It is bound to give you the result. It is undoubtedly giving you a positive result when you are speaking this way to others. We are teaching all these good things, but never teach the kids that you speak with the feeling behind. Not simply that you have to speak good morning and good evening. The feeling is totally absent in such type of good morning and good evening. It is only that is why in English, that is said that it is only a lip sympathy. And we are always speaking from the lip, not from the inside. Both Satya is possible only when you are speaking with your heart. Asteya, Satya again is one of the most important practice. Then comes the Asteya. Asteya Pratisthayam Sarva Ratnopasthanam. I can't understand when you are not doing anything bad or anything illegal or anything unfair, how the objects will be accumulated around you. You are earning just 200 rupees or 500 rupees or 2000 rupees. Nowadays, even if you are earning 20,000 rupees, makes no sense. Not that you are a rich person. You are still hand to mouth even in 20,000 rupees. How can you, even if you are following asteya, non-theft, how the objects, gems and jewels will be accumulated around you? This is very interesting point, that what is the concept of gems and jewels actually? Whether the gems and jewels are that has the form of the stone and several gold ornaments and all these things comes to you. No, actually these are not the gems and jewels. And that is why Patanjali says that, not Patanjali simply says that if you practice asteya, all types of gems and jewels will come. And you know that why we are involved in steya, not asteya, steya. We are involved in steya only because of the greed. And because of the greed which I cannot afford within the limitation of my own affordability, we try to find out the way how we can get it. And then we involve ourselves in the form of steya. So most of the thieves they are doing. They are always trying to get the things that they are not getting otherwise by their own means, resources. This is what Patanjali wants to say, that this can be overcome if you practice asteya. And that is what is written also in one Hindi couplet. And that Hindi couplet is giving a good concept, because you know that there was a time 100 years back or even 200 years back perhaps, when there was not much currency. The richness of the person was assessed on the basis of how many elephants are there at his door, how many horses are there at his door, how many cows are there at the door, how many type of cultivation field he is having, how many big cultivation field. This was the source of assessment of a richness of a person. Undoubtedly, the person who is keeping 5 elephants can feed at least 100 persons per day, because one elephant will take the food of 20 persons or perhaps even more. And one has the capacity to feed 100 persons daily, can keep the elephant. So elephant cannot be kept by anybody, common man or very poor man. He says this couplet, that's why the couplet is Godhan Gajadhan Vajidhan और रतन धन खान जब आवे संतोष धन सब धन धूरी समान. गोधन गजधन वाजिधन. Godhan is the property of cows, number of cows, property. Gajadhan, having elephants, so many elephants. Vajidhan, so many horses. Godhan, Gajadhan, Vajidhan or Ratan Dhan Khan. And also beside this, so many types of gems and jewels you are possessing. Are you a rich person then? But this couplet says no. Even then a person is not rich. Because he says, Jab ave santosh dhan. When you are equipped and when we are with such contentment. When this type of contentment comes to you, then you are a rich person. Otherwise, you are not a rich person. Jab ave santosh dhan, sab dhan dhuri saman. All other type of things that come to you are nothing but dust for you. This is what Patanjali has mentioned through the word asteya, and the same thing has been said, asteya pratisthayam sarvaratnopasthanam. This will not be out of place to mention here one more point. That is, you know that asteya is a thing that is a person who is doing the asteya is a trustworthy person. You believe in him. The person who is not involved in theft is a person upon whom one can have faith. You know, when I go out leaving this house, I make one person responsible for the whole object that are there in the house. He becomes owner for that thing. But he is not touching anything. I know that he is the person who is believable. I will not keep any thief to look after my house. I keep only the person who is having a good record, who is never involved in theft. And then he is looking after my house. Now try to understand this concept in a different field also. Have you heard the concept of trust? Concept of trust and trustees. There are many trusts and there are many trustees also. Have you heard the trustee? And what is the meaning of trustee? Trustee means that a believable person, a faithful person. And also trustee means the person who will not do any type of theft of the property of the trust. That is called trustee. Otherwise, he will not be a trustee. Any person who uses the property of the trust for his vested interest is not a trustee. Will he remain trustee? You can't call him trustee because he is not a trustworthy person. And trust is not the individual's property, is the property of the trust. So any person who is looking after the trust should never use the property of the trust for his own interest. And if he is doing that, he is not a trustee. And that is what Patanjali also supports this concept. Asteya pratisthayam sarvaratnopasthanam. When you think of all the objects with the help, with the contentment that you are never attracted towards the object, you will be involved, you will be doing asteya, and that will result into accumulation of all the objects around. Then brahmacharya. This is brahmacharya. Again, I wanted to find out how this brahmacharya can work for the purpose of the yoga that Patanjali presents. Because brahmacharya is usually understood as celibacy. That is keeping oneself away from the opposite sex. Oh God, time has passed a lot. I'm going with it fast because I have to go to Samadhi. So please bear with me. I want to speak on that point also. So I will not be speaking on much on this. I have taken this brahmacharya, I have to speak a little. That brahmacharya is taken as concept of celibacy. I really wonder that why this concept of celibacy has been associated with the concept of brahmacharya, whereas the brahmacharya is one stage of life according to the Indian tradition. You know that our life, which is having the 100 years, is divided into 4 stages, known as brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha and sannyasa. And brahmacharya is the life from the time of going to the Gurukul till the age of 25. From the age of 26 to 50 is the age of household life. From the age of 51 to 75 is the time for forest dwelling. And from 76 to 100 is the age for renunciate, even leaving that forest dwelling, no connection with the family. Till you are a forest dweller, you are having the connection with the family, but not directly. You are living away in the forest, and your sons or daughters who have some problem come to take your consultation, your suggestion. But this is you are not involved in their work life. You know that brahmacharya is one of the stage of life which starts at the age of 8. Going to the house of ashram, I'm not saying it's not house, ashram of Guru for the sake of education. And there the concept of celibacy right from the age of 8 has got no sense. Why not? It should be understood as brahmacharya is the life of a discipline. A disciplined life is called brahmacharya. And that is what Patanjali wanted to say, perhaps, is a disciplined life that you have to take this. Why this problem has come? This problem has been invited by Patanjali himself. Patanjali, while talking about the effect of brahmacharya, he says that brahmacharya pratisthayam virya lava. As a result of the establishment of brahmacharya, there will be the accumulation of virya. And because of that, virya, the word, which usually in Sanskrit or in Hindi means semen, in English means semen, is giving idea that, okay, by the practice of keeping oneself away from the opposite sex will result into accumulation of the semen. But I do not agree with this concept also. Because vir doesn't essentially mean the semen. Let us not misunderstand the word virya only as semen. But Patanjali has used the word virya, and all the latter commentators have just followed the concept virya is semen, and then they have given unanimously almost the concept of brahmacharya as, excepting I found some difference in if you read the commentary by Swami Vivekananda, he has differentiated it. He has said it that Brahmaiva acharati, you have to behave like a Brahman. And concept of Brahman has got no concept of female or male. Brahman is the neutral gender. It is Brahman, not Brahma. And Brahman is the neutral gender, so no concept of gender. When there is no concept of gender and you are supposed to follow Brahman, it means that you have no feeling of any opposite sex. And I, in that, because in the light of Vivekananda, I have tried to reinterpret the concept. And then I said that you see Brahman in everyone is Brahmacharya. Seeing Brahman in everyone is Brahmacharya. That is why I was reading in one place when Raman Maharshi says, who is treating others? Who is others? Everyone is the same, that is Brahman. So where is others? There is no one is other. Everyone is Brahman. And this point is also related with the concept of ego. If you start thinking that everyone is Brahman, you will lose the concept of ego. Concept of ego consisting, or you are having the concept of ego because you are having differentiation between the others and yourself. So ego can be treated through the Brahmacharya. This is a very unique concept that can be correlated here with the help of the concept that has been given by Swami Vivekananda. Let us try to understand aparigraha. Aparigraha is Thairya Janma Kathanta Sambodha. It is very difficult to understand that how this aparigraha, non-accumulation of the object around, will give you the feeling that why for I have come in this world. How this is related. In order to correlate this concept, you have to bring in the concept of Avinivesh. Unless you bring in the concept of Avinivesh, you will not be able to understand this aparigraha. When you have the love for the life, it is not in the way that you are only loving the life. You are loving the life along with you are loving the object that is required for the life. And that is why aparigraha becomes related with the love for the life. Are you getting this point? This is a very unique relationship. Aparigraha has a relationship with Avinivesh. So when you are having the love for life, you develop an more attention, more attachment towards accumulation of the objects around. But when you will reduce your accumulation of the object, this reduction in the accumulation of the object or reduction or following the aparigraha will result into reduction in the intensity of Avinivesh. Unless you reduce your intensity of Avinivesh, you will not be able to follow aparigraha. And then Patanjali's concept, Janma Kathanta Sambodha, can be experienced. Before that, it cannot be experienced. Are you getting? I am trying to correlate. This is very unique way. I am just sharing my view with you. Try to understand the yamas and niyamas in this way. It will help you to understand in better way rather than only a traditional way of understanding. Sauch, Santosh, Tap, Swadhyaya, Iswar Pradhana. I have already talked about the Saucha. Sauchat, Swanga, Jugupsa, Parayara, Sansarga. This is having a very close relationship with Avidya. In Avidya, Patanjali has said, or commentators also have said that considering impure to be pure is the concept. And here he says that if you practice Saucha, you will develop that concept of impurity and feeling that I am very impure, and you will be developing a disgust towards your own body that is given as effect of the practice of Sauch. Sauch, Santosh, Tap, Swadhyaya and Iswar Pranidhan. Tap, Swadhyaya, Iswar Pranidhan are almost the same. Sauchat, Swangajupta, Santoshat, Anuttama, Sivlav, Anuttama, Suklava, that I have already spoken in the context of the practice of Asteya. These are all just having a relationship, and I believe that they can be understood. The practice of asana and pranayama has been said, and I know that the practice of asana and pranayama has been given more detailed instruction in the book or in the practice of Hatha Yoga. So if you want to know more about the asana and pranayama, besides what Patanjali has said, it is very necessary to know Patanjali's concept of asana, which says that yes, asana is having some special characteristics, and if it is done with the principle of asana that has been presented by Patanjali, there is no possibility of any type of injury, which is becoming very popular nowadays in modern times. You might have heard that the practice of asana results into injury, and you might have heard also the word yoga injury. And you know that yoga injury is the word coined on the basis of sports injury. There is no word like yoga injury. We have coined this word on the basis of sports injury. No, by using the word yoga injury, we are trying to correlate yoga with sports. But yoga is not a sport, should be understood fundamentally. You know, there are many our students, when I was teaching, I used to say, hello, you were not present here for around a week. Sir, I had gone to play yoga. Can you imagine that they had gone to play yoga? So this is the situation that nowadays has become, that they play yoga. This is the actually a going downward the concept of yoga. I tell you, and I am proud of it, that Kaivalyadham is now completing almost 100 years after this 4 years. It will complete 100 years, and there is not a single example of yoga injury in 100 years, at least 96 years. Have you heard the yoga injury in Kaivalyadham? Why there is no yoga injury? It is only because we have always worked with the principles of yoga, principles of doing asanas. We have never violated that part, and therefore there was no question of getting injury. But those who violate the principles of asana, they get injury. And this is not the asana which is responsible for that. It is the wrong way of doing is responsible for that. If you say yoga injury, yoga becomes responsible. It is not yoga injury, it is something yoga practitioner's injury. Well, I'm not going into asana, pranayam. Pratyahar also is very common, and everybody knows that what is pratyahar. Usually it is said to be the pratyahar is known as withdrawal of the sense organ from the sense objects. Again, when I will be taking about the practice of Hatha Yoga, you will be finding that the pratyahar is not only the pratyahar that is there in the Patanjali. Pratyahar has got Hatha Yogic concept also, and Hatha Yogic understanding also. In Dharana Dhyan Samadhi, Patanjali writes Desabandha Tittasya Dharana. Then he writes Tatra Pratyayikatanata Dhyanam. And in the third sutra he writes Tadevartha Matra Nirvasam Swarupa Shunyam Eva Samadhi. Now these are the three related sutras. We cannot understand these sutras separating them. Of course, the first is the Desabandha, then it is all an intensification of the practice of inward journey. You are intensifying your practice, and as you intensify, you transform the dharana into dhyan and dhyan into samadhi. Now, what is dharana? Patanjali says, Desabandhas Chittasya Dharana. When you can capture the mind or restrict the mind in one particular region, then it becomes dharana. When in that particular region you select an object and you are just keeping that object in your meditation uninterruptedly, that becomes dhyana. And when the same object you are meditating upon becomes so much engrossed that you just become one with the object, that becomes samadhi. You just lose your own existence, and there is only, see, in dharana, there is the object, there is the subject, there is the region. You are not going beyond. In dhyana, there is no region, there is only the subject and object. In samadhi, there is not even this subject, only the object. And you just lose your own existence. Try to see how this particular practice has intensified gradually. You are in dharana, then you are in one region, then you are moving in that region. I don't know this will help you. I'm just trying to give you an understanding. Just think it is a field. Ellie, you must have heard me from this. And then there is, in the middle, there is a nail. And take a rope of this length of the circumference, that is length of that particular round shape of particular circumference of that particular land, and see this much. You have taken this much length and you have tied one animal, say horse. You have tied the horse here. Now what will be the condition of the horse? Can it go in this line beyond the area? And this is what is the tying of or binding the chitta in one region. But this is very interesting point. In that region, that animal can move in the whole area. So it can go here, it can go here, it can go here, anywhere. Getting this? It can go anywhere. But as it moves, gradually the rope is shortened because it is being tied in the nail. Moving and getting this rope is short and shorter and shorter. When it becomes so much short that that horse or that animal that you have tied is unable to move at all. It is one with the object, one with that particular area, it cannot move. So it is the existence of that horse also and the field where it is, that's all. It is not more than that, it is not going anywhere else. In the same way, when you are in the room and you can select any object of this room for your meditation. And that selection will be dharana. You can select X, you can select Y, you can select A, you can select B, whatever, you can move. Go and move and try to practice it as much as you can on different objects that you find in the room. But don't allow your mind to go out of the room. When you don't allow the mind to go out of the room, it becomes dharana. It is also, when I'm giving you the example of the room, if you think of practicing dhyana on Rama, do not think of Krishna. Do not think of Rama, think of associated objects of Rama. It is also Deshbandha. You are just captivating it in one particular area, in one particular concept. Now Patanjali says, when the rope is so much short, you are not able to move it anywhere, you get the stage of dhyana, meditation. And this is the meditation where the subject-object both remain. And more than that, when you intensify your practice, that dhyan transforms into samadhi. You go to samadhi, and in that samadhi, you forget your own existence and you become one with the object on which you are meditating upon. That is the stage of samadhi. That is what Patanjali says, tad eva artha matra nivasam. When there is only the artha matra, only the object remains, and Sarupa Sunyamava, you lose your existence as if you are not present, you are absent, not existing. It is called Samadhi. Got this point? It is still not complete. Please be with. So I'm not going into more of speaking. I will show you some of the slides. And the content I will read for you to make you understand that how it is applicable. Let us go there. Now I am coming to this point. Sarvitarka, Nirvitarka. But before I come to this point, let me make something clear. That how this Savitarka is staged. You know that, do not forget the sutra that is there appearing in the context of Samadhi. Tadevartha matra nirvasa swarupa sunnam eva samadhi. And then try to understand after this. After the practice of Chitta Prasadhan, after the practice of Vairagya, after the practice of what happens, your mind becomes clear like a crystal. And whenever you place a crystal to any colored object, that color will be reflected in that crystal. And that is what is the state of mind. That mind is becoming so pure, so clean as a result of the removal of all the waste or all the useless memories that are accumulated in the mind. When they are completely clean, China vritte, abhijatasya, when your vrittis are completely dwindled, attenuated, then abhijatasya, as if of high family, maner grahitri grahan grahyestu, the crystal is having like that of grahitri, the meditator, grahan, the process of meditation, and grahya, the object to be received. When they fuse together, there is no difference between the meditator, meditational object, and the meditational process, then it becomes samapatti. Patanjali further wants to say that this is not the sufficient. Try to understand in this way, because when we are samapatti, according to 141, when acquired pain are removed, signaling that hyperfunctioning of the mind is controlled and it has been pacified as a result of various techniques for the pacification of mind. This in turn results into dwindling of the mental modification. The mind becomes pure, and especially the memory becomes pure and noble. Just as a crystal, there arises a fusion of cognizer, object of cognizing, and act of cognition, process of cognition. This is called the samapatti. But along with that, now is coming the savitarka. Then the word sabda artha jnana vikalpa, then the word, its meaning and knowledge. These two seems to be narrowed knowledge, as they are not having their real existence. The real existence and such imaginary knowledge is considered as savitarka, because it is only imaginary knowledge. It is not existing actually. When this knowledge comes, that it is not real knowledge, it is savitarka. But savitarka is not the only thing. Next comes now, when gradually mind gets purified and starts apprehending the object as they are in true sense, without being colored by word. Its meaning, its knowledge, based on these two, is called nirvitarka. This is the state of, through these only the savichara, nirvichara also. Patanjali, while talking about nirvichara, he said that, that this is where Patanjali says, Tadevartha matra nirvasam sarupa sunnam iva samadhi is the third chapter where samadhi's definition comes. And in the definition of the nirvichara, nirvitarka, what Patanjali writes? Smriti parisuddho sarupa sunnya evartha matra nirvyasa nirvitarka. You will find the same group of words that is described in the case of samadhi in the third chapter, and also in the case of savitarka nirvitarka samadhi in the first chapter. Smriti parisuddho sarupa sunnya evartha matra nirvasa nirvitarka. That's why it says that nirvitarka is the state wherein you lose the existence or name of the person, and he is appearing as he is before you. Then comes the now I have tried to make you understand through this concept what are the objects of samadhi. Object of samadhi is of two types, gross and subtle, especially in the case of savitarka and savichara. Gross samadhi, when the object of samadhi is selected from the gross element, it is called savitarka. And when the object of samadhi is selected from the subtle element, it is called savichara. Now, what is savitarka? When a practitioner tries to bring the object of gross element for samadhi and wants to know it, he knows it fully with reference to name and form, as it is mixed with the name and form of the object. But it starts knowing gradually, not completely. It starts knowing that the gross element behind it, and it is called savitarka. He has not known completely the gross element behind. He has started only. But when he realizes, practitioner loses completely the name and form of the object as a result of memory being purified, signs the gross element without its name and form. It is called nirvitarka. There does not remain the name of object from the object or form of the object. If you are doing the samadhi, I will be appearing not as Sahai, but only earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Any person, any object that you are seeing, they will lose their form. You will know them only as earth, water, fire, and ether. And this is called the stage of samadhi, which is known as nirvitarka samadhi. Coming to the nirvichara and savichara. What is savichara and nirvichara? Just as the name that has been given to us, and we are made up of earth, water, fire, and ether. Similar is the case with the five subtle elements. I am taking the example of the sound. There are some sound that is known as the sound of flute. There are some sound that is known as the sound of tabla, or the guitar, or the sitar, or different type of, or the sound of the truck, lorry, sound of the scooter, sound of many sounds, where there are various types of the sounds in the world. And we identify various sounds with the different objects that with which we are associated with it, and we know it. All these knowledge of the different sounds and association are nothing but vikalpa, because there are only sound, not having any sound like this is this sound, this is that sound. That is what, just as there are two types of samadhi on gross elements, there are two types of samadhi on subtle elements. When one tries to know the real form of subtle elements, then first he knows it as a mixture of name and form, as well as the object. So the reality of the object also starts manifesting as subtle objects. And then finally, he goes to nirvichara, when practitioner loses completely the name and form of the object and signs only the subtle element, it is called nirvichara. So every sound will, only you will say, oh, they are only sound. Every taste, there are various types of the six tastes we know. When you will see, when you will eat the thing, you will say only they are the only taste, not that they are this taste or they are that taste. When this type of knowledge comes, that is the stage of savichara samapatti or samadhi. And all these three, savitarka, nirvitarka, savichara, nirvichara, are considered to be sabij samadhi. When this type of samadhi is obtained, what after nirvichara? As a result of the practice of nirvichara, chitta becomes pure, and yogi gets ability to perceive the real form of the object as it is, because of the purity of the chitta. Where this knowledge is differently gained? Yes. Ability to perceive the real form means the knowledge gained in this way is different from the knowledge gained through praman, anuman or agam. Srutanumana pragyabhyam anna visaya visesarthatvat. Sruta, that is heard. Anuman, that is inferred. Srutanuman and pragya, that is seen, perceived. All these three types of the knowledge are different from the knowledge that you gain through after nirvichara samapatti or sabij samadhi. That is what he wanted to write. And then tasya saptadha pranta bhumi pragya. Here comes that when the knowledge in this way starts coming to you, there is the 7 stages of the pragya. I am not going into details of the 7 pragya, although it is written here. I am going further. What happens after nirvichara? It says that as a result of the practice of advancement in the practice of nirvichara and also attainment of the pragya, ritambara pragya, this results into tajja sanskaro anya sanskara pratibandhi. When this type of pragya comes, ritambara pragya comes, that pragya is having the power to restrict all other previous impressions that has come or that is coming as a result of our actions, not in the present, also in the past. It restricts all types of the impressions that has happened to us. Here comes the concept that whatever we have accumulated in the form of impression in this life or in the past life, that is all completely removed as a result of this ritambara pragya. Patanjali says that ritambara pragya will be resulting into removal of all sorts of the past and present impressions of the karma. But the question arises further, that when this type of knowledge comes, ritambara pragya, and you remove all types of the actions, that particular pragya also gives some sanskara. Ritambara pragya removes the past sanskaras, but ritambara pragya also results into some type of sanskara that it gives to us. Patanjali says that when even this knowledge and the impression thereof is to be restricted for final emancipation. Yogi does not continue his attachment even for such knowledge, which is coming after the Ritambhara Pragya. And in this way, he is able to restrict himself completely, known as Nirbij Samadhi. Tasyapi Nirodhe Sarva Nirodhan Nirbija Samadhi.